Bis- Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, let me welcome all my distinguished panelists and other participants to this webinar organized on the sidelines of 48th session of UN Human Rights Council by World Muslim Congress in collaboration with Kashmir Institute of International Relations, Islamabad. I have a very distinguished panel. I've been joined by Professor Farhan Mujahid Chak, who is professor at Qatar University, Ambassador Dr. Shahid Amin, who is the fourth world chairman of the International Human Rights Commission. Duke Salman Khan from South Africa is founder of Kashmir Global Movement. We will be shortly joined by Professor Dr. Dilnawaz Gardesvi, who is Vice Chancellor of Azad Jammu and Kashmir University. I'm very thankful to Ambassador Dr. Hussain Bo Saad, is Ambassador at Large, IRC Special Representative at UN Geneva. Uzair Khalid, Senior Consultant and Foreign Policy Expert, will be joining us from Washington. I've been asked that Idar Nadeem Murad, member of the Arab Human Rights Committee, she will join us. And Advocate Shaheen, spokesperson of the High Court Bar Association, will be joining us from Srinagar. Barrister Nida Salam, a Kashmiri barrister, will be joining us from Islamabad. Professor Dr. Shugufta Ashraf, who is the coordinator of the event, she has already joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, and I will be waiting for the others to join. But let me start today's webinar, which I have titled it as "The Last Human Rights Include the Rights to Lost Rights." This came to our mind, the situation that's taking place in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir since 2019, when the people are taken away and their burials are held by the Indian Army without the consent of the family, and by not even in some of the incidents, they don't even give the proofs of where the man or the victim was buried. I have gone through a report by the former UN Special Rapporteur, Agnes Gilmar. It's A/HRC/47/33, dated 7th June 2021. Under her tenure, she has done a wonderful job, and one of the jobs which all the former special rapporteurs on this subject did not mention, but she covered this area, and she has probed the neglected dimensions, that is, namely the human rights at death. Where does the right to life terminate and under which conditions? So this was perhaps a new dimension to the human rights systems which she has included. She stressed that human rights obligations extend beyond life into the death of, to encompass the dignity of human remains and the rights of loved ones to mourn also in dignity. So she says the last human rights include the right to last rights. The dead themselves have human rights. This is another perception she gives, the residual human rights, and to be treated with dignity, and to separate from the needs and desires of those who survived them. And others argue that the practical steps to redress indignity and provide respect to the dead. So what we have seen in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir from since the beginning of '89, that we have lots of mass graves, unmarked mass graves, which were unearthed in the lengthened beds of the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Although there was a lot of criticism of the Indian government on this, and the European EU Human Rights Committee held two hearings on this, and also extended its willingness to provide Government of India technical as well as the financial support to investigate those mass graves and to do the forensic evidence, so that those who died and whose victims are still waiting for the loved ones could know the whereabouts of these. But unfortunately, that was not done. But 2019 onwards, we have seen a different dimension. Those killed in fake encounters, in siege and search operations by the Indian occupation forces. They are taken away, their dead bodies are taken away. They are being buried in far from areas without the consent of this family. The recent two incidents which has shaken the Kashmir Valley and the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the people, the followers of the Kashmir freedom struggle all over the world was the first was the Ashraf Serai Saab, whose death was a custodial killing. He died in a prison. He was not provided the proper medical facilities. And then after his death, he was buried without the consent of his family. And his family was present though, but they were not allowed a public mourning on his death. And then his family members, which includes his two sons, they were detained for raising the slogans, pro-freedom slogans during the funeral. And the same thing happened when the iconic leader of Kashmir, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, who breathed his last on the 1st of September 2021. As soon as the news of the death of the iconic leader spread, the government of India, they encircled all the area and put a curfew in Kashmir and also put the communication blackout throughout the Kashmir Valley. And then they barged into the house of Gilani Saab. They took out his dead body. They manhandled the family members and then buried him in a nearby graveyard without consent of his family, and thus denied the right of a farewell the iconic leader deserved through his family and his followers. So this is the situation which is developing in Indian-occupied Kashmir, and today we will be discussing this, how heinous crime is this to deny the people to say a farewell to their loved ones when they are dead. I have been told that Ambassador Hussain Bosar has to go for a meeting, so I will start with Ambassador with you. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Altaf. Dear Chairman, dear participants, dear colleagues, I would like to start my words by emphasizing on the country's 5 major religious groups: the Buddhists, the Sikh, Hindus, Muslims, and small minorities of Christians have thrived and have been able to live for centuries in harmony and mutual ties. Without religion, appetite, or sharp economic or cultural divisions. Kashmir has become like a land of saints, embracing a culture of community diversity and a meeting place for a rich blend of philosophies and way of life that fuse without losing their distinctive identities. Gentlemen, Pandit is the little of Hindus in Kashmir. The joy and happiness of any Kashmiri Pandit cannot be described when he returns to visit his left home in Kashmir, which is what prompts the issue of the rights to be raised in the UN Human Rights Council and Geneva subcommittees. Therefore, I believe that the best solution to this dilemma is for the majority society to open their hearts and minds to Hindu brothers, give them more support and sense of security, and the rights and culture of the Kashmiri Pandits must be respected at all costs. The people of Kashmir are fully aware that the settlement of the conflict cannot be achieved in one step. They are waiting for successive steps for immediate solutions. It is time for all parties involved to sit, and I mean here India and Pakistan and the Kashmiri leadership together, to formulate a strategy for peace and stability in the South Asian region. The administration of US President Joe Biden faces 2 options regarding Kashmir. The first is to continue the Donald Trump administration's policy of ignoring the conflict while continuing to harm India and Pakistan against going to war, as well as overlooking the atrocities in Kashmir. The possibility of a nuclear clash in the Indian subcontinent, which includes a fifth of the world population, cannot be ruled out in the event of hostilities between the two countries. The second option for the United States is to play the role of mediator by initiating a new peace process in Kashmir, which may be through a four-way dialogue involving the United States, India, Pakistan, and Kashmir, or by using the new mechanism, and I believe, and capabilities of the United Nations, and in both cases, the United States would provide the incentive required for the settlements. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Ambassador. In the meanwhile, we were joined by Professor Dr. Saeed Dilnawaz Gardezvi, the Vice Chancellor of University of Kotli. I welcome the Vice Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor. Thank you for joining us. Ambassador, you said it's time to that India, Pakistan, and people of Kashmir should sit down and decide on it and peacefully. But unfortunately, you might be knowing the regime which has taken over in India from 2014 onwards. Also, the previous regime is also the Indian intransigence on the Kashmir for last 74 years is well known. But unfortunately, this regime, which has currently taken over in India, this regime is something different. They are not only denying the Kashmiris their rights, but there is a regime of apartheid now in whole of India. The Muslims, the Christians, the other minorities in India are facing the brunt of this brutal regime, not to talk of Kashmiris. They have snatched each and every right of the Kashmiris. They are not destroying the identity, the culture, and each and every. How can we ourselves sit with them? There is also a UN mechanism for this. Like the people like you to invoke that mechanism, which is already in present, so that by that way, there is a chance that India, Pakistan, and people of Kashmir can decide in a peaceful way to settle this issue. Anyway, thank you very much, Ambassador, for your valuable inputs.
But I would like to add something. I would like to make it very clear that we always talk on compromises. We always talk on peace solutions, and I will leave to the chairman to determine what type of compromises we might go into, and what type. I didn't want to go into all these details because when I knew that the chairman was there, so I will leave it to the chairman for him to take all these measures and decisions. But we work, and you know that, Mr. Altaf, in the United Nations, we always call for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We have been joined also by Uzair Khalid. Thank you, Uzair Khalid, for joining us from Washington, D.C. Warm welcome to you. Now, I will straight away go to Professor Farhan Mujahid Chak. Professor Chak has been in contact with the UN special rapporteurs, and also has recently sent a communication to the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial executions and freedom of assembly, and which recently was made public by the Special Rapporteurs on the extrajudicial execution of Ashraf Sarai Sahab, a well-known Kashmiri leader, and he has also been dealing with the questions of enforced disappearance and mass graves in Kashmir. Kashmir is very close to Farhan. So, Professor Farhan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, and it's an honor to be here, and your organization has been doing excellent work. So I wanted to first thank you for that. His Excellency, Dr. Muhammad Khan, His Excellency Haitham Busaid, thank you all for joining and participating. I would have to kind of clarify, as you did, Altaf Saab, some of the discourse that His Excellency Dr. Haitham was putting forward about the Kashmiri Muslims having to reach out to the Pandit community. You know, I understand that the goodwill is important amongst all communities, but like you mentioned, neither Kashmiris nor Pakistan have been an impediment toward resolving this issue. The impediment toward resolving this issue is the 1 million Indian occupation forces, the settler colonialism, the militarization, and the apartheid-like state that has been created. As you mentioned, and what brings us here today is the horrendous abuse of Shaheed Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, snatching his body, forcibly burying it without family and without following the Islamic rites and rituals, which are his universal human right. The Geneva Convention 1949, under Article 17, stipulates the respect and the responsibilities that are owed to the deceased. All of that has been violated, not just in this one circumstance. They have been continuously violated by India. So it's absolutely futile to turn to the one that is suffering and remind them that they got to be kinder. No, absolutely not. We need to take this and we need to encourage those people who are working within the UN system, like Altaf Saab himself. And I've recently, of course, for the last 2 years, have been reaching out to them, dealing with the enforced disappearances. And there are over 20,000 enforced disappearances in the occupied territories of Jammu and Kashmir that we know of. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And you can take the word of the Jammu and Kashmir Civil Society Organization by Parvez Imroz, Khurram Ahmed, you can talk, Khurram Parvez rather, you can speak to Parvina Ahangar, who is also leading an NGO on the mothers of the disappeared. There is so much, you know, I've always kind of been surprised at this, at the level of atrocity that has been ongoing in Kashmir since the Jammu genocide. You know, the Jammu genocide, until that point, which at least around 237 upwards people were killed, more than 500,000 moved into Pakistan, but there's been no official documentation. There's been a type to almost erase its history. Why haven't there been UN tribunals and calls to investigate nearly 300,000 people dying, being wiped out? And this is a clear case of Islamophobia. The demonization, the language, and it's there. The evidence is there, but it needs to be brought forward. So engaging with UN representatives, we'd like to say to them that, look at the facts on the ground. There are people here that are held at gunpoint, and nobody should expect them to bend over backwards. Instead, the criticisms or the requests for leniency or reaching out should not be from the Kashmiri Muslims to their oppressor. It should be the other way around. And that's where I think that engaging with all international organizations is so crucial. Now, again, I think there's been a lot of misperceptions about Kashmir. At least growing up in Canada, I can tell you that a lot of people had misconceptions on what is the ground reality. The Valley of Kashmir has been overwhelmingly Muslim since the last 700 years, 7 centuries, and the numbers have not really been changed. So the Pundit community that was forced out by other than the Kashmiri Muslims, by the way, even Marhum Shaheed Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani reached out to them and asked them to return. But during that time, 219 Kashmiri Pundits were killed. 219 from 1989 till now. Those are the statistics that the Indian government shares. Now, if you do a comparison, we're talking just from 1990, we're talking about more than 100,000 Kashmiri lives have been lost. And if you go to 1947, you're talking about, if you include since 1990, that's about 350,000. These are massive killings that have gone on that have not been effectively and have not been adequately presented to the world. And this is exactly why I think it's so important that we have these conversations, and you can hear from Kashmiri Muslims that have lived through it, are the product of it. And now you see, like Altaf Hussain Saab, dozens of Kashmiris coming forward and challenging the narrative that everything was fine until something happened in 1980, which is actually false. There's always been this slow attempt at denying the Kashmiris their right. And if they do struggle for their right of self-determination, you end up with genocide or mass killings. So I appreciate everybody's comments and I appreciate the sentiment. Of course, we of all people, Kashmiris, believe in peace, but not at the cost of our life, our dignity, and our freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Farhand, for your valuable contribution and some clarifications on your part. Madam Rida Murad has also joined us. Very warm welcome to her. So I will go directly to Washington, D.C., where Uzair Khalid is waiting for us. Uzair, do you listen to me?
Yes, sir. Respected Excellency Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, respected Dr. Shagufta, esteemed Mr. Farhan Chak, Excellency Shahid Amin Khan, Excellencies Gardezi Murad, and most esteemed and honorable members of the Kashmir Institute of International Relations. First of all, I do terribly to Dr. Shagufta and all of you, including Wani Saab, including the Kashmir Institute of International Relations. I do apologize for my slightly, I was just running and coming out of one meeting, jumping into the other. I just caught the tail end of what respected Mr. Chuck said. And I not only echo his sentiments, but I'd like to, the way I'd like to intellectually contribute to this seminar is, number one, respected Excellency Wani and Dr. Shagufta and Dr. Rida, all of you, Mr. Chuck, you made some excellent points. Number one, we should have these kind of brainstorming, intellectual, virtual, in an age of pandemics, obviously. We should have these meetings much more often, number one. Number two, we should have them as consistently, as often as possible. Number three, yes, Shaheed Marhum Gilani Saab's martyrdom, it definitely, we witnessed firsthand the brutality of the occupying forces, the world's most militarized region in the world. I think after Shaheed Marhum Gilani Saab, what really needs to be done is a lot of bridge, in addition to what Chuck Saab said towards the tail end of his presentation, raising awareness. Our esteemed brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Rohingya, in Syria, in other parts of the world, they get the necessary publicity, the necessary awareness. They get the sound bites. They get the clicks they deserve. I think one of the reasons for which occupied Kashmir, illegally occupied Kashmir, yes, as per the Geneva and as per the Vienna declarations of the 1949 and the subsequent ones as well. The reason why I think occupied Kashmir doesn't necessarily get the attention and the soundbite and the advocacy and the lobbying it deserves is because partly, and again, respected members, I'm all for Kashmiri independence and liberation, but I do represent a political point of view. And I think every people, as per the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948, deserve the right to self-determination. And according to universally accepted human rights norms, especially after Marhum Gilani's Shahadat, first of all, the all parties Hurriyat conference, the various factions such as G, Hurriyat G, then you have Hurriyat M, which is headed by Mirwaiz Umar Farooq. They need to do a lot of bridge building amongst themselves. Second of all, since what I call a paper tiger, the February, I think it was February 25th, when they signed the ceasefire, which was a little bit of Modi, which was back channel diplomacy. But this ceasefire along the line of control is nothing more than a paper tiger. The Indian Border Security Force, the BSF, from February the 25th up till today, have committed 1,595, I repeat, 1,595 ceasefire violations. There has been constant mortar shelling from the Indian side. Modi and his tyrannical BJP regime have imposed presidential rule. Now, what happens when you have presidential rule? The heavy-handedness that we witnessed at the funeral ceremony of Gilani Saab. What happens with the revocation of 370 and Article 35A? It's a social engineering project that seeks to demographically depopulate the Muslims, as you're witnessing in East Jerusalem, as you're witnessing in Gaza. It encourages a very fascistic Hindutva that really resembles Israeli-type settler colonialism. It's a 74-year struggle that needs to gain momentum. And obviously, under the BJP government, very interestingly, one thing I want to add that I'm sure all of you have been following very closely is that the totalitarian regime of Mr. Modi, I have nothing against the people of India. I'm talking about the totalitarian fascist regime of Modi. There have been extrajudicial killings in Uri, in Baramulla, for example, in Budgam, in Pulwama, where they stage false flags, in Kupwara, in Sopore, in Srinagar. Obviously, we witnessed the heavy-handedness in Srinagar, including during the funeral procession. But just like the Israel Defense Forces, the India Central Reserve Police Force, the CRPF, they need to demilitarize before every single effort. New Delhi is using its chairmanship of the Security Council to silence the oppression of the Kashmiri people. While the world is preoccupied, and rightly so, with our Afghan brothers and sisters, we need to direct attention towards our equally, and by the way, they're related. What's happening in Afghanistan cannot conceptually be divorced from what's happening in illegally occupied Kashmir. These solidarity movements need to strategically synergize and form, online and offline. All marginalized, struggling communities need to cohesively unite and integrate offline and online through op-eds, through articles, through similar seminars as organized by your wonderful institution. As well as the fact that I'd like to say, until the UN resolution 1514 and 2649, until these UN resolutions, which guaranteed UN resolution 1514 and 2649, I know under the Indian chairmanship, they're going to be concealed. They're not going to be highlighted. But it is our job. Gilani Saab's work is our own. He understood concepts, and his work and his shahadat means that we have to now start lobbying for the implementation of 1514 and 2649 that guarantees a referendum on self-determination. In order to honor Gilani Saab, we need to do these things. In order to honor all the people that I just quote, Chuck Saab and Wani Saab was, and all of you were alluding to them as well. So what I'm trying to basically say in a nutshell is, given the recent information we just received, this was day before yesterday, that, the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Human Rights Minister, they came out with a 131 page dossier, which, and let me tell you how it's linked to Kashmir, by the way, that not only is the Hindutva regime of Modi, and with the unsavory likes of Amit Shah and the coterie of fascists around him, including Ajit Doval, former head of the Indian intelligence, what they are doing basically is that it's been established, by the way, it has been established in that document that India is sponsoring, and I'm going to link it just now to occupied Kashmir, by the way. It is sponsoring, it is training, it is arming, it is equipping, it is funding ISIS-K which we witnessed their brutal terrorism on August the 26th, when they killed over 150 Afghan citizens, including 13 American, service people. So they are using these havens in South India, like Kerala, for example. And they are going to use these militants. They've trained them. They have brainwashed them. They're funding their families. They are going to train them to stage false flag attacks, like in Uri, like in Pulwama, in occupied Kashmir. You know who's going to be scapegoated for all those attacks? Everybody, I think, in this prestigious seminar, and all the my esteemed panelists know very well who's going to be blamed. I call this manufactured terrorism. This is on the Modi's agenda. This is why a couple of days ago, by the way, he met with Rajnath, the defense minister. He met with Ajit Doval. He met with Shah. They've realized that they've lost big time in China, and that, the ironclad alliance between Pakistan and China definitely irks New Delhi. So as a result, they are resorting to such desperate measures and tactics. Another thing, my esteemed colleagues, and then I'm open to any questions, and I realize I have to share the floor with all of you, but just one more comment I'm going to make is that, with the tidal sea change in Afghanistan, I just want to make one final comment that I'd like my respected panelists to further elaborate on. The natural assumption is that, incidentally, I'm just doing a mic check. Could you just raise your hands if you can hear me, by the way? Could you just raise your hands? No, just raise your hands. I'm about to finish in 3 minutes, by the way. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do hear you. We do hear you.
Okay. So I just wanted to make one final point about the Taliban and the new Taliban rule. These are early days. The dust hasn't settled. This is just inverted commas, an interim government. But let me tell you that when it comes to Kashmir, the Afghan Taliban, as much as these are early days and one can't make any, and I wouldn't want to make any definitive statements, I believe that, any dialogue process must be Afghan driven and Afghan led. But I'm going to relate it now to occupied Kashmir. And this further complicates the equation, just to muddy the waters a little bit. Let me tell you why. Zabiullah Mujahid, right? I'm talking about the current interim government of the Taliban, of the Afghan Taliban, not to be confused with the TTP, right? And the Taliban leader, Anas Haqqani, they said on a news channel, CNN News 18, and I quote, Kashmir is not part of our jurisdiction and interference is against our policy. Whereas in the Deccan Herald, another newspaper, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said, in fact, he urged Pakistan and India to bilaterally resolve issues. We know that that's just hot air, because whatever Pakistan will commit to, the occupying forces will just render it into paper tiger. I gave you the example of the ceasefire violations since February the 25th. So even though Suhail Shaheen told the BBC about Kashmir, talking about the Afghan Taliban here, we have the right being now. Interestingly, although Suhail Shaheen says, and he's from the old guard, Taliban, right? Not just Taliban 2.0, but what I call Taliban 1.0, right? We have the right, being Muslims, to raise our voice for the Muslims in Kashmir and, interestingly, for the Muslims in India. But let me tell you, my respected panelists and esteemed attendees of this conference, where things get a little bit complicated. There are certain other members of the Afghan Taliban who based on their actions and words so far, I'm suspicious. And one of them is Sher Stanekzai. Now, why? And he's the deputy, he's been appointed as the acting, and I use the word acting, very deliberately because it's an interim government, right? He had some back channel meetings with the Indians in Qatar. He met the Indian ambassador in Qatar, and he gave reassurance to the occupying. I'm talking about Sher Stanigzai. He gave reassurance to the to the ambassador, to the Indian ambassador in Qatar, that no harm will come to the occupying forces. What I am trying to say, to make a long story short, is that we've seen conflicting messages from the Afghan Taliban when it comes to occupied Kashmir. Number one, that is confusing. Number two, it means that the freedom fighters and those in favor of Kashmiri self-determination, sitting, all over the world, by the way, should not blindly think that the Afghan Taliban support the Kashmiri self-determination. With that point in mind, I mean, those were just some of the ideas. This was very random. This was very off the cuff. I hope you guys found it informative, and I hope I can carry on contributing. I wear many hats, but I'd love to be a more integral part of this initiative. I see that you're based in F8. I'm serving on a high-level consultancy these days, and although, sir, you're right, I am based in Washington. These days I'm in Islamabad. So anyhow, but I just want to wrap this up by saying, thank you for listening, and I'm open to any questions you have. And I hope the others will participate equally. And this was just off the cuff, so excuse its lack of coherence or structure, basically. But thank you, Wani Saab, Dr. Shagufta, Dr. Salam, and the rest of you.
Thank you, Uzair, for your wonderful contribution. You rightly pointed out that we should unite and make the dream of Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani true, to enforce the resolution 1514 and 26249. That's the duty of all the Kashmiris and the people of Kashmir to, in a way, to fulfill the dreams of the deceased leader, the Shaheed leader, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani. And number two, as far as Taliban is concerned, I want to mention it that the Kashmiri freedom struggle has been an indigenous freedom struggle for a long time, and we have been struggling ourselves for this. Anybody, if helps us or not helps us, that's a matter of their own. They will have to decide what they have to do. But currently, what India is trying to do and what India is trying to manipulate, as you rightly said, that they are training the ISS people in India, in different parts of India, in order to have the false flag operations and thereby make the casualty the Kashmiri freedom fighters and the Pakistan, in order to malign the freedom struggle with international terrorism. That's what India has been doing. I must remind the panelists of the one incident which took place way back in 2005 when Bill Clinton, I think it was 2005, when Bill Clinton visited, 1995 perhaps, Bill Clinton visited India, and at that time, the Indian intelligence managed a fake encounter in which firstly they killed the 36 Sikhs of the Sikh community and then alleged that these were foreign terrorists, and then Indian agencies themselves came up with a report that this was a stage managed act, and some of the people who were blamed for that but never punished for that act. And this has been the Indian plan, what they are doing at this time right now. They are trying to malign the Kashmiri freedom struggle with the international terrorism. That's what they do. But we know our struggle is indigenous, and it is for the UN recognized right to self-determination. So my next speaker will be Professor Dr. Syed Dilnawaz Gardezvi, His Excellency Vice Chancellor of University of Kotli. Dr. Dilnawaz Gardezvi, you have the floor.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Can you hear me?
Walaikum.
Yeah,
Loud
yeah.
and clear, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you very much, Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, Ambassador Shahid, Dr. Shagufta, Farhan Chak Saab, and all other panelists and and the people who have joined this very important webinar today. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your efforts for the cause, just cause of the Kashmiri people. Of course, the Kashmiri peoples are struggling for their right of self-determination for the last 74 years. And they are being denied their right of self-determination. It's very amazing to know that Indian propaganda, they say that there are only a few hundred or maybe 150 mujahideen, within the Kashmir Valley. But they have posted more than 900 armed persons, their army men in Kashmir, and they are taking all brutal actions what they can do for the last so many years. But I appreciate the efforts of the Kashmiri people. At one time, the Indian people are saying, in the Indian media is saying that it's interference from the outside. On the other hand, you see that whole Kashmir, the occupied Kashmir, illegally occupied Kashmir by the Indian forces, that is barbed, and there is a very big wall between the divide, of the Kashmiris from the side of the Azad Kashmir and the Kashmiris in the Indian occupied side. Nobody can cross over there, and nobody can help those people over there. But still, why they are keeping so big army over there to quell the only few hundred mujahideens in the Kashmir, or the freedom fighters in the Kashmir? So it's quite amazing. If India is fair, if she says that the Kashmiris are with the Indian policy, what is the fear for them? For the last more than 2 years, they are imposing the curfew. Even they are closing the social media and all other media outlets which can inform the international community. So it's quite amazing. At the same time, we have to see about the role of the international community, especially the developed countries in the Europe and the North America, who are very much famous for protecting the right of the dogs, the right of the cats, the right of the birds, and right of the animals. But they are not concerned about the right of the human beings who are being suffered for the last 74 years. And more than 100,000 people have been martyred over there. We know, everybody knows that there were mass graves, discovered. All Western media and everybody knows that it was due to the brutality of the Indian forces. They killed people in masses and they buried them in the unknown graveyards. And at the behest of this, the very important Kashmiri leader, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, when he died, his body was not allowed to be buried according to the rituals or according to the right of the family to bury him according to the Islamic way. What Muslim follows. It was snatched brutally by the Indian forces, and forcibly they buried him, and still till today, the area of his graveyard is being protected by the army. They think that some people will come over here and they will pray over there as a Muslim. It's the belief of the Muslim. They every day after the death of their elders, they visit the graveyard and they pray for them. And this is the right of the human being, the religious right of the family of the Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani. What was his crime? He was the man of principle. He fought for whole his life for the self-determination of the Kashmiris. India has no legal or moral role to play in the Kashmir. They themselves, India itself, went to the United Nations, and on the request of the India, the resolutions on Kashmir were passed by the United Nations, the Security Council resolution, the United Nations Assembly resolution. They all were for the self-determination of the Kashmiri people. But India never allowed this right of the self-determination. Rather, they denied it, and they said that it's the bilateral dispute between Pakistan and India. which is not true. It's false. And they are deterring and they are misguiding the international community. But what I want to say is that the international community, especially the people in the West who are very much caring about the right of the animals, right of the every living being in the world, they must care about the right of the people living in the Kashmir. And now India is brutally not only killing the people, but they are cleansing the ethical society of the people of the Kashmir. Is the mass cleansing of the Muslims to culminate the majority of the people in Kashmir. So it's a big crime, it's a crime against humanity. But the international community is silent. Maybe not only the international community, I would say, the masses and the general public. Definitely, whoever knows about the right of the Kashmiris, they are in favor of it. But especially the government policies and those governments of the Western governments who have invested in the India, they are looking after their interest, business interest, rather than the human rights of the people of the Kashmir. So it's a big tragedy. If Kashmir would have an oil reserve, or it would have some other reserves of the minerals, and many Western countries would have come over here, like they invaded the Afghanistan, they invaded the Iraq, and they came into the Syria, and they bombarded the Libya. But because they know that there is no any mineral source, or there is no petrol, or their business interest in Kashmir, they are leaving the Kashmiri people on the mercy of the BJP government, which is of course is a prejudiced government. They have their own agenda. They are not human beings. They are below the level of the human, we will say, because openly mass lynching is going on with the minorities in India, and nobody is caring about that. Whole Indian media, even Indian courts, Indian army, every Indian government, everybody is following the same policy of the Modi doctrine, which is a crime against the humanity. So they must be exposed. And I am grateful and I'm thankful to you people who are very active and working on the cause of the Kashmiri people, highlighting it. At the same time, you are also highlighting the human rights violation in other parts of the continent, in other parts of this globe, especially the Palestine and cause of the other people of freedom fighter in different areas of the world. So Kashmiris have the full right for their self-determination, and this was the cause for which Ali Gilani has spared his whole life, and he was brought under custody by the Indian forces and and he died under the custody because of his uprightness, his full stance on the right of self-determination of the Kashmiri people. So definitely we believe in Allah, and we know that Kashmiris will succeed one day. They have never left even by facing the brutalities by the Indian forces, the pellet guns, the martyrdom, and snatching of all the right of the human beings. Still, they have continued their struggle for the right of self-determination, which is being recognized by the international community, by the United Nations, by the Security Council, and all international bodies. So they are working under the legal framework, and nobody can snatch their right of self-determination, and it must be ensured. And the message of Ali Gilani was, of course, the same. He was time and again, he said that India must recognize the Kashmiris' right of self-determination, because it was the commitment made by the Indian themselves, not by any other person, not the Kashmiris or the Pakistan or other peoples. It was the promise made by the Indian government, and then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Nehru, categorically mentioned many times, not once. He said that we don't believe on the forced marriages. We will let the peoples of Kashmir to choose their own destiny. And if they want, freedom from India, if they want to join Pakistan, we will not restrict them, or we will not have any claim over them. But India never gave this right of the self-determination of the people of Kashmir, and the people of, they are even snatching their lands, they have snatched their human rights, they have snatched their lives, they have snatched their livelihood, everything, their honor, everything has been taken. But still they are continuing their struggle for the right of self-determination. And inshallah, the day will come, the Kashmiris will get their right of self-determination, and they will determine their own destiny. And we urge the international community, especially the Western governments, to take a clear stance over the violation of the human rights, especially when people like Ali Gilani were not honored. His funeral was not honored. And this is the extreme of the violation of the human rights. And once again, I appreciate the organizer of this webinar, especially the Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, his team, and my staff member, Dr. Shugufta, is dedicatedly working on this. And she is always, ambassador from the University of Kotli. She is working over there. She is present with you people. And you people are doing your utmost try, and inshallah, your efforts will not go without any result. Definitely, the time will come and Kashmiris will get the right of self-determination. With these comments, I think I have said enough. If there is any question, I will respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Sayyid Dilnawaz Gurdesri Sahab, for your contribution. You rightly pointed out that these resolutions are passed by the United Nations Security Council, by the United Nations Commission on India and Pakistan, and this was the India which took the matter to the United Nations. The crimes which India is doing, these are heinous crimes, that India should be made accountable for these crimes. And you rightly pointed out that currently, but when we see that India blames Pakistan and for others for cross-border terrorism, and there is a huge fencing electrified by the Indians on the border, and there is no one can sneak to that. These all allegations of India, and for the last 3 years, we have seen 4 years, the people who have embraced the martyrdom in Kashmir were the native Kashmiris, and this is the struggle of the people of Kashmir. They will continue it, and we have recently learned a lesson from the history that world's most powerful country has to vacate territory which it has forcibly occupied or which has invaded in a way, but they have to leave it, not to think of the other. This is a lesson of history that occupier has to end its occupation one day. I will now straight away go to South Africa, where my brother Salman Khan is waiting. He is the founder of the Friends of Kashmir at South Africa. Brother Salman, do you hear me? You have the floor. Brother Salman, I think Brother Salman is somewhere.
Hello,
yes,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Fasabbih bismi rabbikal a'la, fasabbih bismi rabbikal a'la, fasabbih bismi rabbikal a'la. All the praises to the Lord, the beautiful Lord, the creator, the protector, the nourisher of whatever between the earth and the heaven, and all the praises to his beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I like to acknowledge the very presence of our distinguished guest. First of all, our MC, Program Director, Altaf Wani Saab, Ambassador Shahid Amin Saab, Ambassador Dr. Hussam Bawood Saeed, in his absence here. I believe that Professor Chuck have I think, grilled him enough that he left. Sister Rida Nadeem Murad, Sister Barrister Nida Salam, Brother and Comrade Farhan Chuck Saab, Dr. Dilnawaz Nawaz Sahab, Uzair Khalid, and Advocate Shaheen. All the protocol observed, and of course, my gratitude to the organizing committee, the member of the webinar from the KIR, as well as the World Muslim Congress. A big thank you to all of you for organizing this beautiful seminar. And of course, not but least, Professor and my dear comrade, my mentor, Dr. Shagufta Ashraf, who is always tirelessly working, not only onto many other conferences, webinar, but also very active onto the social media. That's what we really need. We need more on it. Dear brother and sister and comrade in arm, I greet you from South Africa, sunny South Africa, the land of the champion of the human rights, from the land of Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and Sol Plaatje and Steve Biko. The greeting of Islam and the greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you very much. This is my tribute to the organizing committee of the KIR, that organizing a very sad but very important webinar on the last rites of Sayyid Shah Ali Jinani, the Shaheed, the Millat, the Qaid of the Kashmir. Today we paid the tribute to the giant of Kashmir liberation, and also we deliver the condemnation to the United Nations as well as to the India for contravening the international laws, the cultural laws, the religions, and the civil rights laws of the world. I like to actually have a three-part, my speech divided into three. One, I need to look at it, what happened at his last rites, the last part of his departure, and then of course his life under the pretext of the international law, and then of course moving toward we need to walk the talk. We need to talk the hard talks. And I'm definitely not here to please anyone. I will say what it is and what is the ground reality is. What India done on the demise or shahadat of our great leader, the Qaid of Kashmiri liberation, the Sayyid Shah Jilani Sahib, that he contravened the many international laws. And I'll read one by one. Article 14 of a Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, which came in effective in 1948, and India actually ratified it in 1948 as well. So it's a party to it. The Article 16 of the Geneva Convention, which came in place and became enforced in 1949. The Article 8 and 3 of the European Union Convention on the Human Rights, that's come in effect in the 1989. The Article 21 and subsection 297, 404, 499, and 503 of IPC of the Indian Constitution, their own constitution. They have denied all of these articles, and that's a legal case against them. And I'm sure the Dr. Franchak and many other people are working on it, including myself. But we really need to be unified behind really taking seriously, because this is not the first time they have done it. It happened many times, and it will continue if we do not send a strong message. But we need to have a unity before that. The human right lies at the core of all international laws. The applicable declaration, the treaties do not, as rule of the journals, set it by. We as the human beings, we as a civilian of the world, we need to uphold and respect and make sure they are enforced. Our Shaheed, our leader, has gone. But let me send the message. Let me send the message to the Indian government very clearly, if they're listening to it, and I'm sure they are recording and listening to it. Shore darya se keh raha tha samandar ka sakoot. Shore darya se keh raha tha samandar ka sakoot. Ke jisme jitna zarf hai, itna hi wo khamush hai. And the time has come that we will be rising as a storm internationally. The life has never been normal in a Kashmir. There was never had been a freedom of civil liberties, not only for Kashmiris, especially for the Shaheed Sayyid Ali Shah Jinani, because he was leading from the front. He had no freedom of the speech. He had no freedom of the expression. He had no freedom of the association, and especially he was house arrest for the last 20 years. Did the world make the headlines of it? Did the international media talk about it? We do not see that. Dear brother and sister, it is too much to ask. These rights, those are the bedrock of a civil universal declaration of the civil rights, universal declaration of the human rights, the US Bill of Rights, the EU Convention of the Human and Political and Civil Rights, the South African Bill of Rights, the African Union Bill of the Right. These are the rights the people of the world enjoys everywhere, regardless of the color and creature. But these same rights, that's a bedrock. The 39 of the ICCPR and 53 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights has been trampled upon, has been violated. on a day-to-day basis. And our dear ambassador from the United Nations, he has left. But my message to him is the United Nations is our problem because it have a duplicity when it's come to applying the rules. It was the same rules was applied when there was a 12 people was killed in Libya. All the human rights violation on all the resolution was become effective, and he was taken out by the force. It was the same human rights conventions and the treaties come into the place in full force by the United Nations when Saddam Hussein committed and crossed the border into the another country. India has crossed illegally into our beautiful land, murdering our people. Over 100,000 people have been killed, and I have earlier said over 300,000. We cannot continue, and we should not continue to count the body counts, that how many more people will die until the world will look at it. It is an irony that the world leaders keeping their eyes wide shut on these atrocities, and it's including our own Muslim leaders, instead of condemning at the height of the 5th of August 2019, on the 19th of August, the Amir of United Arab Emirates was giving a highest civilian award to a person who'd been raping our sisters and daughter. The Modi would receive just 2 weeks after the highest civilian award. And I think that's the height of a duplicity, the height of munafiqat, we can call it in a crude word. As I said, I'm not here to be liked by anybody. I will say what it is really like to be said. Let me remind you, the rest of the world, and to the panelists, the declaration, the Universal Declaration of the Human Right is all about the rights of a people to live peacefully, which was adopted on the 10th of December 1948. India ratified and adopted on the 26th in 1949, and it came in force in 1950. And of course, the Pakistan was one of the original drafter of the Constitution. I'm going to go into the life of Jilani Sahab. Did his life was by any international law was normal? The Declaration of the Human Right, the first article, right to live. Did he live a decent and a free life? No, he did not. Right to be a freedom. Right to a freedom. Did he have a freedom? No, he did not have a freedom. Right to the equality and prohibition against the impressionable discrimination. Was not discriminated. He was discriminated. Article 4, right to the justice. Was he offered the justice? No, he was not offered the justice. Was he had Article 5 talk about the right to the fair trial? No, he was never given a right to the fair trial. Number 6 article talk about the right to the protection against the abuse of the power. It was a huge abuse, and it was died in that abusive relationship with India. Article 7 talk about the protection against the torture. He might have never had the torture, but psychologically he was tortured. His deputy, Mr. Sharai, has been said that he was tortured under the jurist of Indian protection. And the right of the protection of the honor and reputation. No, he was never have been given a right for his honor and a reputation. Right of the freedom of a belief and thoughts and his speech, never been given the right. He was he was feared. The Indian government always feared for him to travel. That's why he was not in the jail, but he was in a house arrest for the last 20 years. And one of the time when the soldier walked, when he was in the thing, I think it was 3 years ago, after the 2019 abrogation of the Article 370, he went and knocked the door, and I hang my head down in the shame when he knocked the door and asked the soldiers outside the door that give me a permission to go to the masjid. Let me read my Juma namaz. And he was said, no, you are not allowed to. He said, today is the funeral of an Indian democracy. And that's what it is. But it's not enough. The right to the freedom of the religion he was given. He was not allowed to go to the mosque for the last many years. A right to the freedom of association. He couldn't meet with his political party people. Right to the protection of the property. That's Article 12. Right to the privacy, he was not given. And right to the freedom of the movement and the residence, he was not given. He was confined to the house. And I think we collectively as a panelist, as both sides of the Kashmir, the diaspora, large, the Pakistan people of Pakistan, we failed our dear leader. And I'm very sorry to say that, because we really dearly, we really have failed him. We did not let him enjoy his life. We did not had a courage to stand up into the, in front of the OIC or the United Nations. We didn't have 1 million people march to the United Nations to say enough is enough. If you can apply the universal of the Declaration of the Right in Libya, in Afghanistan, where you turn the countries like Iran, Afghanistan, 3 million people were killed by the NATO. Why not the same rule get applicable into the Indian occupied Kashmir? If the General Augusto Pinochet, Nicola and Elena of the Romania can be put under the firing drill for killing only 20,000 people, why not the Modi for 100,000 people should be put onto the firing drill for every single loss of our brother and sister, and all the rapes that he has and his soldier has molested, he should be put 1,000 times onto the front of the firing drill. If the Umar al-Bashir was declared a war criminal by the United Nations Security Council, and I think the Modi fit the suit many times more than that. If the neoliberal spree of the political economy is much mightier than the lives of our brother and sister in Kashmir, then I think the world has failed us. The world has failed us. And I think that is a time that we should be thinking that our brothers and sisters live in Kashmir constantly into the deprivation of every civil life liberty. If the Nobel Prize can be given to the Malala Yousafzai, then why not my sister can go to the school for attending the schools freely? Why they get molested? Why there is no peaceful, why there is no Nobel Peace Prize to be given to my sisters into the Kashmir? If the Taliban was the oppressor, why not the BJP and the RSS India, Modi goons oppress Kashmiri Indians, minorities at the large? Why they not have been put to the task? And I think that is this juncture we really need to say, and I hope this message will arrive to the United Nations. I hope it will go into the power corridor of the diplomatic community and the people. I think the United Nations is only serving the Western agenda. It is Islamophobic, it is anti-African, it is a Eurocentric. Its laws only protect the Western agenda, and I think this is the time that we need to dismantle the power of United Nations. Either we create a parallel body, or we go and we lobby and we make sure that we humiliate every single meetings or every single General Assembly happening, that we humiliate the office bearer of United Nations and say, don't talk about the Hindu Pandit, talk about my sisters, talk about Kunan Pashanpura, that where the 300 women was raped in a one night in front of the brother and sister. You don't talk about it. I think this is the time that we as collectively need to take a charge. Nobody else will fight our fight. Forget about the Taliban. They have enough at their plate. Forget about anybody else. Pakistan done enough for it. I think it is the time that every single Kashmiri need to resist, because that's the only way we exist. This is the time we need to rise. This is the time that we need to support. And the people as a diaspora Kashmiri have a greater responsibility toward the brother and sister in Kashmir, because we can sit and talk, we can sit and use the computer, we can sit like from South Africa. I have opened a case of a war crime against the Modi, the Prime Minister Modi. The warrant of arrest was issued, and I think it should be done from the Canada to America to the Belgium to the Venezuela, wherever the Kashmiris are, there should be, because we got a legitimate case and we have made it happen in South Africa. We cannot continue to be at the mercy of our brothers and those who say we will support you. Let me say it clearly, and let's say it loudly, that hopefully the Islamabad, the power corridor of the diplomatic community will listen. We cannot be at the mercy of a triple tragedy: rhetoric, rituals, and of course all the time that we have rhyme, that we support the issue of Kashmir by diplomacy, by the morality. And whatever morality is, that my Kashmiri leader died and we couldn't give him the ghusl. What type of morality it is that we cannot take the ICG, we cannot take the war crime case to the ICG. What type of diplomacy it is that for the last 73 years that we have only 2 countries supporting the resolution on Kashmir to the Pakistan. One is Niger, one is China. Why not the other countries? I think this is the time has come. The things which we used to use, we've been using it. It has been come to the redundancy. The top-down strategy need to change. We cannot be fighting into the corridor of the power corridor of the diplomatic, the corridor of the United Nations, or into the chambers of any other organization which is run by the European, protect the European. We need to actually get to the bottom of things. We need to make sure that we talk about it. I think the Jilani Sahib has not done. Let me send this message very clear to the India. The Jilani Sahib has not died. He multiplied. We are the soldier. We will continue his fight. We will take his liberation torch We will move forward because we have a spirit to no surrender. We will take the baton. We will fight for the liberty because that's what he taught us. He has given us a glowing flame to continue to fight for the people of Kashmir, and we will continue with that. With that, I would like to say thank you very much. I call, and just last thing, I like to call for a unity. I like to call for a cohesion. I like to call for a international mobilization. I like to call for our leadership to be please be serious. We cannot just be talking. We need to walk the talk. Wa akhiru dawana walhamdulillahi wa rabbil alameen.
Thank you, Brother Salman, for your very strong statement on the issue. As we know, we have the right to say everything because we have not been getting the support we deserve from the international community and all those. So we need to knock at their conscience at each and every level. But in the same way, I will like to just add that even today, the OIC, which we always curse them, but even today, they had a very good statement of the OIC on the situation in occupied Kashmir in the Human Rights Council. But the countries have their own problems, and we must knock at their conscience what is their duty to do. At the same time, we must remind the international community that the way they are talking about the peace in the region or in the world, all the doors of peace are through Kashmir. If Kashmir is not resolved, there cannot be any peace in this region. So with this, I will go straight away to Rida Murad, sister. You have the floor. Will you listen to me? Rida? Rida, are you there?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, now you have the floor now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, lectures and lectures, peace be upon you from Lebanon. I would like, first of all, to talking about the Kashmir region as a global topic, and not only for the Kashmiri region or people, as it's a humanitarian issue, especially and the conflict is Kashmir is a region dispute between three countries, Pakistan, China, over the Kashmir region. And the dispute over Kashmir is a tripartite, not bilateral, you know. So the international silence around Kashmir is a humanitarian crime, especially since the region is self-contained. A human society, women, children, and men would right at the rest of all societies. We must now call on the international family and the United Nations to start recognizing the region as a state of sovereignty, especially the mother of the region, which is self-contained and has a culture, people, customs, traditions, and all the required system. The conflict over the region has started since 1974, since the first World War. Sorry, you have any questions?
It's 1947.
47, yes, sorry. I thought 74, sorry. Okay. So yes, beginning of First War, right? World War, right? First World War.
Now, after the Second World War.
47, the Second War.
Yeah, after the Second World War, yeah.
So we must now call the international, as I said, and I like to give an example. In Iraq, there is a Kurdistan region belonging to the state of Iraq, who are of the same Islamic religion in the state, yet they demand independence from Iraq. So the priority is for Kurdistan, for Kashmiri people, because you know a lot of issues with human rights, not with the Kashmirian people. They have a very important reason to take the independence from India, or you know.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातहू।
So
आपकी दुआएं आपकी जी। वो उसमें वेबिनार चल रहा है मेरा किर से, वो सेंटर ऑफ।
yeah,
हेलो,
yes, I would like.
हाँ नहीं मैं कह
Yeah.
रहा हूँ वो मेरा वेबिनार।
Excuse me, you have any?
Duke Salman, would you like to?
Would like to what?
No,
Dr.
it's okay. It's
Salman?
okay. You continue. It was side topic.
Dr. Ida,
Nothing.
you continue.
You
Yeah,
continue.
okay.
Duke Salman, you
already-
please mute your mic.
Okay, it's okay. My voice
Dr.
is
Ida,
okay
you
now?
continue, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm original, and many other like the Islamic nations, and they believe in the right of oppressed people to live in human and social dignity for Kashmiri society and its people. May God protect you and your people from all haters. Thank you, Dr. Shagufta. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about Kashmir issues. So I love to visit Kashmir one day, inshallah, very soon, maybe next year. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nida Murad, for your contribution.
Thank
Now
you.
I'll go to Barrister Nida Salam. I would like Ambassador Saab to be the last speaker to conclude the webinar. So it's Barrister Nida Salam.
Thank you.
Hello, Wanisab, can you hear me?
I tried to do the quiz.
Yeah, we do hear you.
My laptop
All right.
battery
I would like to say thank you to Wanisab and Dr. Shagufta for the invitation. It is my privilege to be here. As far as human rights are concerned, I strongly believe that human rights values are the fruit of the interaction and communication between civilizations, culture throughout history, the product of the struggle by all the people against all forms of injustice and oppression, either it's external or internal. In this sense, such values belong to humanity as a whole. Human rights delimit state power and at the same time require state to take positive measures, ensuring an environment that enable all people to enjoy their fundamental basic human rights. As far as the governments are concerned, and other duty barriers are under an obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights, which forms the basis of legal entitlements and remedies. As I would like to quote Kofi Annan back in 1997, he once stated that human rights are foreign to no culture and native to all nations. So in other words, that are universal. A legal system under the rule of law has processes which give people, regardless of their status, equal access to the right they are entitled to that rights under the law. It is well accepted that rule of law and the maintenance of human rights are interconnected. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states in preamble that human rights ought to be protected by the rule of law. My sympathies and condolences are with the family of the Sayyid Ali Gilani Sahib in relation to his demise and in relation to the torture, oppression, discrimination which he felt during his lifetime, and as far as his family members are going through at the moment in occupied Kashmir. As far as death is concerned, I strongly believe that death is often associated with finally being at peace. So it is one of the fundamental human rights, as the person is entitled to have a life with dignity, he's entitled to die with dignity as well, and be buried with dignity according to his religious and social customs. The living benefit from this privilege by having the assurance that their bodies will be treated with respect after his or her death. It is a way of respecting the life he has led and help the people facing such death to make their peace with it. As far as a legal point of view is concerned, international law and national law in terms of the Indian Constitution, I would like to give references here that according to Article 2, Sub-Article 3 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, that very clearly states that state parties undertake to ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms are violated shall have an effective remedy. According to Article 17, third paragraph of 1949 Geneva Convention 1 provides that parties to the conflict must ensure that the dead are honorably interred and if possible according to their religious rituals. According to Article 130 of the 1949 Geneva Convention, provides that the detaining authorities shall ensure the internees who die while interned are honorably buried, if possible, according to their religious rituals. As we are aware that Sayyid Ali Gilani Sahib was house arrested and since very long. So his all human rights were infringed when he was alive, and his human rights and the commitments of India in relation to the Geneva Convention in relation to the other commitments were infringed by the current government under the umbrella of fascist, racist, arrogant Modi. According to Article 3 of the Universal Declaration, everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. Ali Gilani's family is in a trouble at the moment by Indian military, and I strongly believe that their human rights are infringed by Indian military. Article 5 very clearly states that no one shall subject to torture. Imagine your family member died and there's no funeral and his body is like taken by the military forces of the world's largest democracy, which India considered. So it is a torture towards the family. Again, Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights very clearly states that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. When Ali Gilani's family were not given a right to mourn on the funeral and they took away the body, it means that to practice their religion was taken away, was infringed by Indian government, and it was against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and India is in a breach of international commitment. The right to decent rule mentioned in Article 21 and 25 of the Constitution of India as well. So India not only violated international commitments, India violated their own constitution. I would like to give references of certain cases of the Supreme Court and the High Court of India, where they strongly believe that a dead person should be buried according to their right and with dignity and respect. A division bench of the Allahabad High Court held in the case of Mujib Bhai versus the state of UP that the term person in Article 21 of the Constitution of India includes a dead person in quite limited sense, but right to live with dignity should be extended to his dead body, and it should be treated with respect according to the tradition, culture, and faith in law. Finally, I would like to give another reference of Common Cause versus Union of India. The Supreme Court confirmed that the right to die with dignity is component of the right to a life under Article 21 of the Constitution of India and Article 25 of the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court in the case of Ashray Adhikar Abayan versus Union of India very clearly mentioned that traditions and cultures aspects are inherent to the last rights of a person's dead body. Right to decent funeral is also traced in Article 25 of the Constitution of India, which provides for freedom of conscience and free profession and practice and propagation of religion subject to public order, morality, health, and other fundamental human rights under the part 3 of the Constitution of India. So following all these judgments, it is quite clear that the right to decent burial has been made a part of fundamental right, and dead bodies are to be respected and disposed of with dignity that they deserve. And Indian current government, under the umbrella of Modi, infringed the basic fundamental human right to die with dignity and respect, to be buried with dignity and respect. It was taken away from Sayyid Ali Gilani and his family, and India is in a serious breach of international commitment and violated their own constitution. The Honorable High Court of Madras in suo motu versus versus the state of Tamil Nadu case. It was held that the right of a person to have dissent rule comes within the scope and ambit of the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Why I'm giving these references of the High Court and Supreme Court cases? Because these cases set the precedent according to the Constitution of the India, that a dead person should be buried with dignity and respect, the way you give a right to a live person. So India is in a breach of that. Whereas the 1999 NATO Standardization Agreement 2070 provide, whenever practicable, a brief rule service of the appropriate religion is and should be held, and India is again in breach of that. The purpose of International Criminal Court is to end impunity, to help end conflict and prevent further conflicts, to deter future perpetrators, to assist when national criminal justice bodies are unable or unwillingly to act or to make up for any shortcoming of ad hoc tribunals. So I strongly believe that India should be prosecuted in the International Criminal Court in relation to the infringement of human rights. The International Criminal Court jurisdiction, as far as is concerned, it was stated according to the Rome Statute, Article 5, crimes within the jurisdiction are considered as genocide, crime against humanity, war crimes, and crime of aggression. I strongly believe that when Indian military took away the body of Sayyid Ali Gilani, that fall under the category of a crime against humanity and a crime of aggression. The Indian military, under the umbrella of Modi, tried to create aggression among the Muslim people in occupied Kashmir. Article 11 to Article 13 of International Criminal Court states in relation to the jurisdiction and the statutes that crimes committed on the territory of the state party, and the state party is responsible for that. So now the question here is, as we all admire United Nations, universal declarations, international commitments, international law, and international courts across the globe as a young generation. So the question here is that who can refer to the international courts? The state party, according to the Article 14, the United Nations Security Council, according to Article 13b, and International Criminal Court prosecutor launching investigation on his or her own initiative based on credible information received from the states, NGOs, victims, and all the sources. They all fall under the ambit of Article 15. So we are expecting from the United Nations Security Council to take some steps, because across the globe as a young generation, we are quite furious about it, that what happened, like they not only took away his basic fundamental human rights during his life, even after his death. And that is horrific. That's against humanity, against like civilization, actually, you can say that. India is in a breach of international commitment and is in a violation of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, Conventions on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, because the female members of Sayyid Ali Gilani, his female family members were tortured as well, great, by Indian military. So Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment. So India is responsible and is in a very serious violations of the fundamental human rights, international commitments. So I would like to quote Oscar Wilde. Once he stated that death must be so beautiful to lie in the soft brown earth with the grasses waving above one's head and listen to silence, to have no yesterdays and no tomorrows, to forget time, to forgive life, and to be at peace. Whatever has happened with the funeral and the dead body of Sayyid Ali Gilani, I strongly condemn that, and I would like to urge international allies and international community that we should take a stand now. This is enough, you know. Gilani's life is embedded with incitement, fascination, and inspiration for the young generation across the globe into this time and age. His long, unflattering stance on the Kashmir resistance for liberation over the years has earned him the title, the leader of the resistance in Kashmir. So, and his continuing confinement in house jail or house arrest is again infringement of basic fundamental human rights, violations of human rights, international commitments violations by Indian military, by Indian government under the fascist, racist, arrogant era of Modi. And as a young generation from this part of Kashmir, like we are very sad because across the globe, we have never experienced this thing like we were not expecting that India can go to that far, that lowest level in relation into the funeral and the dead body. So I strongly condemn that from all perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nida, for your very legalistic point of view on what's happening in Kashmir, and you gave the references to some of the judgments of the Indian Supreme Court, High Courts, and also of the Constitution of India, and also some international legal instruments. But as we have experienced so far in Kashmir, all these legal frameworks in India, all the Indian state organs, be it Supreme Judiciary, be it the Executive, be it the Parliament of India, or other arms, they are at war with the people of Kashmir. None of these things do exist in Kashmir for last at least 34 years. I have not seen any of these implemented. None of the perpetrators was brought to justice. And we have seen some of the decisions of the Supreme Court of India and some of the cases where they went on to satisfy the conscience of the Indian people, not the legal articles or whatever was the legal. That was not, those decisions were only to satisfy the conscience of the Indian population in order to gain the votes from them. And that's how the Indian media these days, they are creating a war hysteria against Kashmiris. If you go to the Indian channels, there is nothing like that. They are in any mood of embracing the Kashmir, but they are in a mood to demonize the people of Kashmir, demonize their resistance and all that what they have been doing. As far as the international instruments you discussed, we have been trying to invoke those, but unfortunately, what we see around the globe currently, the governments around the globe, they pursue their own economic interests rather than the human values for which the human rights systems were established, for which these type of instruments were created or are created. That's why we see the conflicts around the globe. If there was any of the implementation of these instruments which the international community has already established, then we could see a world of peace around the globe, not these conflicts arising all around the globe, what we see today. But anyway, we should pin hope on what is the existing structures. We will continue to galvanize support in those structures. We will continue to knock at their conscience. We will continue to raise the voice for the oppressed people. We will continue to remind them of the international commitments and also to the Indian government of its international obligations and its own constitutional obligations. I will now like Ambassador Dr. Mohammad Shahid Amin Khan Sahab for his remarks. As Ambassador is the chair of the International Human Rights Commission. So, sir, you have the floor. Then Professor Shugufta will thank all the panelists and say goodbye to all. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab, Chairman of the Kashmir Institute of Information, and the representative of World Muslim Conference, Geneva in Pakistan. First of all, I pay tribute to Shaheed Gilani Sahab, and the attitude and what had happened at the last moment
Jason from
for his bearings by the host was really condemnable. Many of my fellow
this session to online.
speakers has
Vanessa, please mute yourself.
elaborated the situation of Kashmir, and my fellow colleague, Ambassador Dr. Hassan Hussain, has proposed the 2 points, which is might be not relevant for you in relevance of the situation of the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir. But always there was a seat to discuss, and there is a way to discuss. Invoking the ICC Article 5 and 11 to 13 as per Barrister Nadia, and discussing the United Nations Resolution 1514 and 2649, and the all relevant instrument of the Human Rights Convention by my brother Salman Khan. And the situation has been explained by the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dil Nawaz, and all others, and obviously comparison with the Kashmir and Afghanistan by Uzair Khalid. There are a relevance for everything, but as far as the Kashmir issue, it's an irrelevant for the international community. We have to just accept this heinous crime of the international community towards the people of Kashmir. Secondly, unfortunately, all three parties are successful to make it the Kashmir issue as a geographical issue. It's not discussable on the international forums as a matter of a right of a self-determination. It becomes the geographical issue between three parties: India, Pakistan, and Kashmiris. So the relevance of a self-determination, right of a self-determination, has gone because of the misfortunates done by the two relevant parties, those who are advocating and pleading the right of a self-determination for the peoples of Kashmir. We have to accept our mistakes. The dossier submitted by the NSA and Human Rights Minister of Pakistan with the 131 allegation on Kashmir and the Indian government, it's also it will discuss able dossier, but the relevance against, there is no relevance according to the wishes of the international community. Kashmir dispute has started from the 3rd June 1947, when Lord Mountbatten has addressed the all princely states rulers and assured them that they will be either the part of India or either the part of Pakistan, or either there is a one more either, that they can be stay as an independent states. But none of the both countries allowed that independence to any states. This is one more tragedy with the peoples of India, those who was living in any state, subcontinent of India. United Nations has passed several resolutions on 21 April 1948, 13 August 1948, 5 January 1949, 14 March 1950, 30 March 1951, 24th January 1957, and 20 September 1965, and etc. etc. There are two reports of the reporter of the Human Rights Council, but nothing has been achieved. The Kashmir is an issue that one religious community wants the right of a freedom or the right of a self-determination. This is the brutal situation the Kashmiris are facing today, and we distract their all sacrifices because of our own mistakes. Sayyid Ali Gilani was the voice of people of Kashmiris. Mirwais Umar is the voice of peoples of Kashmir. Shabir Shah is the voice of people of Kashmir. Honorable Ashraf Sarai lost his life as a voice of people of Kashmir. And I can name so many. There are so many pupils. There are the young pupils. There are the mothers, sisters, kids. All sacrifices has gone into the veins because of the wrong steps we have taken in the past 75 years. And the international community are just considering the Kashmir issue as a geographical issue. They are not considering it the right of a self-determination like in people of Kosovo, like in peoples of South Sudan, like in peoples of East Timor. This is the failure, a failure on the account of all sides. We lost the case of Kashmir. And if we want to again come up with the case of Kashmir on the international community, first we have to decide that it is a geographical issue or it is a matter of a right of a self-determination. On every fora, we connected this case with the Pakistan, which is not. Pakistan is one of the party, but the main party are the peoples of Kashmir. They have to decide whatever they want to decide. Why not we are taking up this matter on that direction? When we are saying that Pakistan is an advocate of the people of Kashmir rather than the people of Kashmir themselves, then we jeopardize all the sacrifices given by the people of Kashmir and innocent peoples of Kashmir, and we are sending that all sacrifices into the dustbin. All laws invoke on that time when one nation or a group of a people fight for their own right and for their own struggle. There is no advocate for themselves. East Timor, who was the advocate for them? Kosovo, who was the advocate for them? Bosnia, who was the advocate for them? They themselves was the advocate of their own cause and their own freedom. So let us to be fair and practical. We have to discuss that where we lost the case and how we have to regain that loss. We have done it. We shouldn't give up the hopes and aspiration of the people of Kashmir. We shouldn't abandon their wishes and their sacrifices. Might be there will be many peoples advocating for the people of Kashmir. Might be many nations are sympathizing the struggle of the people of Kashmir. But it should be, the center point should be the fight of the people of Kashmir, not the any other advocacy. All norms has been violated. All laws has been violated. Everything is violated by the regime. But as far as the international community is looking, the international community is just looking at what is the struggle of the people of Kashmir. They don't need any advocate. People of Kashmir are themselves for the advocate for their struggle and for their uprising. Now, if we will compare, when we compare the things that the China is in a party, Pakistan is in a party, Afghan, Taliban has said something else, and something else said by some other countries, we are jeopardizing the struggle of our people of Kashmir. Why not we are just taking up that from 1947 to onward, thousands and thousands people, innocent people have died by the hand of a brutality of a state oppression. It's an oppression. Unless we are not declaring it is an oppression, then how we can fight for this? The oppression should be on the table of the international community. We cannot jeopardize, as I earlier said, that what is the comparison here that Zabiullah Mujahid said or Shaheen said something for the people of Kashmir, or whether they were in negotiating or talking with the Indian government or an ambassador. It's nothing. They have their own work, they have their own policy, they have their own stake, they have their own country, they have their own matters. So that it is my humble request. First, we have to engage the international community voices with the voice of the people of Kashmir and focus only one demand: right of self-determination for the peoples of Kashmir. There is no other choice. Whatever the resolution, if Barrister Nadia is a lawyer as well, she knows that what is the complication of the UN resolutions. The main party was declared in that resolution the people of Kashmir. And the two parties who's occupying the both sides, I'm saying word using the occupying, although might be it will be not suitable to anyone, the both parties are legally bound to give the right of self-determination and to make a decision where the people of Kashmir has to be stand. It is their obligation. And the party is peoples of Kashmir who has to decide. So we are distracting the things because of our ignorance and our negligence. I must endorse the 2 point has been taken by Ambassador Hassan Hussain. If both parties should sit together along with the international community to ensure that how the right of a self-determination should be conferred to the people of Kashmir. There is no other option. If this option is not given by the international community, then all international institutions are irrelevant for the peoples of Kashmir. They are irrelevant for the peoples of the world. And when the irrelevancy comes, then that means that we are destructing all the international structure on which the peoples of a nation having a faith or can be establish the faith, although the international mechanism has been failed. We have an experience of it because of the business markets, because of the interest, and because of the economic interest with each other. Countries are making policies on a business level. They are not making a policy on a political and a human catastrophe level. This is what I am saying. And now we have to take in consideration also. India is the biggest economic market for the world. I am again and again saying to the whole of my fellow Kashmiris and all those who are human rights defenders that in the future, the countries and power will decide according to the size of economic markets. They will not decide according to your wishes. So the terrorist, a declared terrorist, when he becomes the prime minister, he been honored by the White House, those who declared them as a terrorist. So because he is the head of the biggest market of the Asia. This is what I am saying. Paying tribute to the sacrifice of the peoples of Kashmir and leadership of Kashmir is something else. Going on a track is something else. We have to open our eyes now into the new scenario, into the new world. It's a new world. It's not an old world. We are just living in the old world. An old world theme will not serve our interest. This is what I would say, and I hope and I wish the people of Kashmir will get the right of a self-determination, freedom, a freedom for to live, a freedom to choose, a freedom to democracy, and freedom for the respect of a rule of law along with the human rights, according to their own aspiration, according to their own needs, like in all civilized countries and nations. May God will serve, Allah will serve and bestow the blessing over the peoples of Kashmir and their struggle. Thank you very much.
Amen.
Thank you, Ambassador Dr. Ramin sir, for your contribution. I see Uzair Khalid has hands up. So Uzair, you want to add something? You have the floor.
Excellency Wani, thank you very much. I'll be very brief. Excellency Wani, you mentioned some, I just want to make a few very sort of in terms of executive summary type bullet point comments. You know, Excellency Wani, you spoke about war hysteria. We witnessed this. Respected panelists, can you hear me? If you can you just raise your hand?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. So, Excellency Wani, you know, a very good example of the war hysteria you spoke about is in the disputed valley of Panjshir. Again, Excellency Shahid Amin Khan Sahab, I'm sorry I'm bringing up the example of Afghanistan, but just because it's in this particular matter of war hysteria. You know, Excellency Wani, you probably remember that just day before yesterday, retired Indian generals, including hyper-nationalist Indian media like Republic TV and the Godi media, what they call, right? And you know, sir, how they were caught by the UK Defense Journal when their retired general doctored and their mainstream media doctored respected law enforcement institutions of Pakistan, alleging that the law enforcement institutions of Pakistan were somehow involved. These are laughable accusations in the valley of Panjshir. So very much that is a nation that thrives on war hysteria. Gardezi Saab, very quickly, you mentioned a very strategic point. And respected panelists, I really welcome your comments on this. Honorable Dilnawaz Gardezi Saab said, and very rightly so, that had there been minerals like, you know, the minerals that exist in Afghanistan or the petrol that exists in the Middle East or, you know, various parts of the world, South America, that Kashmir would have been the epicenter. Sir, allow me to just complement your thought structure, Gardezi Sahib, mentioning something very, very interesting, you'll all find interesting. You know, the past wars were fought over petrol, over oil, over gas. Do you know that the future wars will be waged over water?
Water.
Do you know what is the epicenter of water? The epicenter of the Sarchashma of water is Kashmir. Future wars will be fought over Kashmir. Let me just tell you that China has successfully captured 38,000 kilometers of eastern Ladakh. And I do not think they are at all going to step back from Pangong Tso. They are not going to step back from the hot springs. They are not going to step back from Gojra. They are not going to step back from Depsang Plains. So that's another. So, sir, Kashmir may not have petrol, but Kashmir is the source of water and therefore will be the future source of conflict. Excellency Amin Khan and Excellency Wani, I just want to quickly tie one more thing. You're absolutely right. Due to the failure of the existing international organizations, perhaps future webinars can speak about the birth of parallel organizations, because the current ones, excuse my cynicism, maybe we know that they are Eurocentric, they will not be disbanded, but for our coming generations to have a chance, maybe we need to, using your words, knock on the door of their conscience and speak about galvanizing support for parallel international structures, because these ones they serve a very limited agenda. Last but not least, respected Mr. Salman Khan, first of all, I salute your passion. Sir, because you're based in South Africa, I just want to mention something. Sir, you know, Gilani Saab, I just want to end by paying a very, very brief tribute. Gilani Saab, and you're in South Africa, Gilani Saab was awarded Nishane Pakistan. Now, Nishane Pakistan was awarded to Fidel Castro of Cuba and was awarded to Mr. Nelson Mandela. So there are two things, I think, talking from a global perspective. He is our Shaheed Gilani Saab. He is our Nelson Mandela. He is our Martin Luther King. He is our Malcolm X. He is our Fidel Castro. He is our future. He should be integrated within, you know, there's a lot of talk in Pakistan these days about the single national curriculum, the SNC. He should be etched in every, not just Pakistan studies book, but he should be a main part of the future. And this is a message to the Higher Education Commission, by the way, of the future textbooks, so that our future generations can understand and appreciate and respect and learn about the value of a true freedom fighter. With that, I render the floor back to our respected Wani Saab and Dr. Shagufta.
Thank you, Zaid, for your input. Really, you made very wonderful comments. As far as you said that our future generations should know about the Gilani Saab, we should incorporate into this survey. I think it has become more important for us to document all what Gilani Saab has said and what is the history of Kashmir, because the Indians on the other side, they are trying to rewrite the history of Kashmir. They have changed the official language of Kashmir. They are dismantling all the Muslim and Islamic, whatever things we had. They are dismantling all those. So we have to work on it. It's dire need of the hour. So I think Brother Salman has also hands up. Brother Salman, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. And I've been listening to all the passionate Nida Salam and Ambassador, who I daily interact on, and to those Uzair Khan and rest of the people. I think we need to be very pragmatic. How do we take it to the next level? We've seen many deaths. We have seen many people suffering. 14 million people are caged in Kashmir. It is our responsibility as diaspora. And before I go into what we need to do, I'll give a very second example of how we need to deal with the situation, how we go forward. But I just wanted to go on to the Uzair Khan. It's not that India is only after the water they got from the Himalayas coming from there. It was to obstruct the flow of Pakistan, the water supply too. The India main reason to connect to the Kashmir was only, if you look at the geopolitical map and go back into the history and look at the India Remembered and also the National Archive, the Royal Archive that has been unearthed and disclassified, the Nehru point was to hold on to the Kashmir was to geopolitically connect to the CAR, which is the Central Asian Republic. If you take away the Kashmir, India have no land connectivity. It's surrounded with a hot sea around. The only connectivity to the rest of the world or to the Central Asian Republic, it's only from the Kashmir. But the game is over. Why? Because the CPEC is cut through and Chinese will never leave from there. And the Pakistanis are very much in relationship with that. Now, I wanted to address Ambassador Mohammed Amin. I think you're coming very close to say something, but for some reason you're shying away from what you really need to say. And let me put the words in your mouth and let me help you to say what you really wanted to say. You know that I know that for the last 73 years, I'm sorry, but I have to use this platform and I need to communicate. For 74 years, we've been a failure. There is no impact in the power corridor of top-down strategy. You agree or you don't agree? We could not move over resolution in United Nations, in a Security Council, on the war crime, on abrogations. So many things happen when nothing can happen. It'll never happen because we got only two countries supporting from Africa. One is called Niger and the other one is China. That's true. Nobody else, even Muslim country doesn't split. So what is the lesson after 74 years? Shall we continue to bang our hand into the power corridor of a United Nations with the support of Pakistan? No, I think the top-down strategy need to change to the bottom up, with the people-to-people contact need to have. And I think, Ambassador, what I want to tell you that you're coming short to say, I think the only answer going forward for a Kashmir liberation is the government in exile. Palestinians fought for 1947 up to 1989. They could not get nothing moving. They formed from the NGO PLO. It was an NGO. They formed an NGO into the United Nations as a government in exile. And they were funded from all around the world. $1 billion was funded, and they see their liberation. They are more powerful. Their name is internationally known, and they come. Most of the countries, those who find their way as a government in exile, you have a voice, you got embassies, you got your representative seat, and you are more vocal. Now, I wanted to not to criticize on the dossier of 133 pages. Anything that Pakistan said, and it has been realized in Islamabad that Pakistan, the minute Pakistan present the case of Kashmir, it says India and Pakistan, that is a bilateral issue and it is a Pakistan propaganda. That 134 pages should have been presented by a NGO, internationally respected NGO, in the auspices of the Dr. Nabi Fai, Wani Saab, and the international maybe 10 to 15 top leader. They presented that to the United Nations, could have carried $1 million worth of the weight. So now that is very, very important that we need to understand that Kashmiri need to represent their own war. They can't be having a brokerage into that. And secondly, the war crime, that case I opened in South Africa, which is the warrant of arrest is still valid in South Africa. Modi cannot come to South Africa because we will arrest him. And inshallah, that could happen one day. I can tell you that war crime case can be taken to the next level of ICG, but we need a referral country. South Africa cannot become a referral country. It needs to be Pakistan. Pakistan under the section 14 of the United Nations or the Geneva Convention can only rectify when they ratified the, if they ratified the Rome Statute, which they did not. The minute they ratified the Rome Statute, then they're legal party to raise the issue of an Indian war crime, a Modi car crime. So Pakistan needs to actually now ratify that. My request to Islamabad will be ratify that. Now, lastly, I want to leave it for the 5 things, so the thought for the people who have not heard me before, what we need to do, learn from South Africa. They had only 1,300 people in exile. We got in exile. We had more than 3.5 million Kashmiris living as a diaspora overseas. Why we are not impactful? I'll tell you what the Nelson Mandela strategy was a 5 pillars, which I can tell you we can use exactly the same thing. 1, international mobilization and condemnation. That need to happen. And we need to make sure that we are very vocal and we need to form the unity across the world. Second is the called legal entities. If Salman Khan can open a case of a legal war crime from South Africa, it can happen from the Belgium, it can happen from the other places. We need to use the legal ways. We need to do it. Thirdly is the BDS, which is the your boycott sanction. It's a very powerful tool. India is very vulnerable. It is on the decline for the last 8 years under the Modi. Their economy is growing not upward, downward, and their population is growing upward. In 2030, there will be 1.8 billion people. We need to hit them. The last two items that we need to do is a social media. We need to be very active. We need to be every day out there. We need to have a school and colleges joining the way. And the lastly, to build the brand. We need to be like Ozair Khan was saying, we don't have enough sound bite because we don't have the identity. It's like a Palestinian scarf is identity for the Palestinian cause. Where is our scarf? We don't have the identity. We need to build up. Thank you very much. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue to meet and we continue to discuss, but we need to take the charge. We need to take the charge. And ambassador, don't be shy. I think the government in exile is the only answer going forward.
Thank you, Brother Salman, for your wonderful suggestions. Let us say what happens next, what is coming up in the minds of the policymakers. But as Kashmiris rightly pointed out, we have to continue and from not from top to down, but from down to top, and we have to knock the doors. That's what we are doing, and we will continue to do. As Ambassador was saying earlier, Ambassador Shahid Amin Khan Sahab, he said that we have lost it. But I will say that though we have not achieved what we are trying to achieve, but as far as I see, the report of the Human Rights Commissioner, if you see that in that report also says the right of self-determination of people of Jammu and Kashmir is protected under international law. This is what there is some sort of conscience at the part of some people. And the same way, the Secretary General also referred to that. But when it comes to the individual countries who basically manufacture the international order, and you see it is currently Eurocentric or American-centric, we say, that's true. We have to see that the things which are happening in Middle East and in our neighborhood and other things, and we are looking and we see a future new blocks coming in, and we can see the fall of the unipolar world, and we will see something different coming up in the future, and that will be an encouraging factor in devising the policies in the future. I could see Nida Salam has hands up if she has to add.
I would like to add in relation to Ambassador's conversation that in relation to self-determination, I would like to mention here that the Pakistan's current Prime Minister Imran Khan, in many of his current speeches, offered for the right of self-determination. What about the Prime Minister of India? As far as occupied Kashmir is concerned and atrocities and infringement of human rights, I'm from this part of Kashmir, Pakistan part of Kashmir, and I can assure you that all my rights are protected, and I'm exercising all my fundamental rights, from a right to work to education and all that, and living autonomously. Ambassador mentioned that India is economically dominating the world. I would like to tell Ambassador that I can assure you that Pakistan is the backbone in the region, and Pakistan is the game changer. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, one of the panelists spoke about Afghanistan. Pakistan played a very pivotal role in terms to be a bridge in relation towards Western allies, and Pakistan hosted the highest number of refugees as far as Afghanistan's refugees from Afghanistan are concerned. And stability in Afghanistan means that stability in Pakistan. All the forces of Pakistan working within the ambit of the Constitution of Pakistan for the stability in the region. And past in the days, Indian media propaganda against our armed forces and the head of our intelligence services and all that. So I strongly condemn that, because as far as Western allies are concerned, as far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan believed in stability, Pakistan believed in peace and human rights to prevail from all perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Nida. Ambassador, your words, and then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, ladies and gentlemen.
I have to respond to my brother Salman Khan. he is very much right to establish the government in exile. He is very much, I mean, might be my position is not allowing me to say so many things, which might be the people want to listen and praise, but I'm not here to get praised for my wordings. I'm here to highlight the issues which is abandoned the Kashmir cause. Why our voice is not yet to be listened by the international community? That is the most important thing we have to consider. Again, I respect the views of Ozair. I respect the views of Barrister Nadia. This is not a question of a Pakistan. This is a question of Kashmir. Why not? We do understand. The people of Pakistan, 122 millions, might be living in a very constitutional way. It's nothing to concern. What Pakistan has achieved 40 years back in Afghanistan. We was facilitator. And again, we are accuser. What we achieved it now, later on, the word reaction will come like in past. I am particularly concerning on the struggle of the people of Kashmir. I'm just making the two parts. One, the Kashmiris from the last 75 years struggling for the right of self-determination promised by international community. Second, it is not a geographical matter that India or Pakistan are claiming on it. It's not yet to be decided by the people of Kashmir whether they are going to be a part of Pakistan, whether they are going to be a part of India. The first matter is the first. When we put all the things, all eggs in the one baskets, we cannot cook all the eggs at a one time. If we will cook the eggs at one time, to whom we will give it? We have to be considerate on our focus. Kashmiri diaspora, as Brother Sulman said, they can establish the government in exile, establish the non-governmental organization. Let the United Nations or international fora should recognize you in the special or consultative status. Let's start the particular way, in the particular way. When we are talking about, as Brother Sulman said, the ICJ is having a very short mandate. ICJ can decide between the two countries. So it is again, it's not a matter of India or Pakistan. I am again and again saying this word. This should be goes virally into the every mind of a Kashmiri that this is not a matter between India and Pakistan. This is a matter of a rights of a self-determination of the people of Kashmiris. First, when they got the right of self-determination, then they will decide what to do. So first come first. Let it to serve the first thing. When we Pakistani and Kashmiris are speaking, we mix up everything in one basket and we quarrel with that. This is what is the wrong. And this is what the international community is confused. Whether the Kashmiris are fighting for the right of self-determination or whether they are wanting to go with the Pakistan or whether the Indian claim is the right. So we are confusing the international community. Please don't confuse the international community if you want to achieve your own goals. Don't put the all sacrifices of innocent children, innocent young men, innocent mothers, sisters, and elders of our Kashmirs. This is we are doing it. And we have to reshape our thoughts. We have to reshape our policies. We have to reshape our thinking towards the issue of Kashmir. For that reason, 75 years, we shouldn't come on the point, on the agreed point of the international community, that the people of Kashmir having a right of self-determination. It is an agreed point with the consent of India, with the consent of Pakistan, with the consent of China, with the consent of all P5. Why don't we start from there? And what is lacking? What is making it the international community not to enforce this right, accepted right? This is because of our conflicting and confusing statement and stance. We have to hold accountable ourselves as well. We shouldn't put everything on the international community. When we don't know, okay, what we have to do with our own home and our own issue, who is the international community to come forward and correct you? So live with your own parodies. It is a kind of a parody. For that reason, I am saying that the Pakistan and India is a claimer, not a party. Exact party, according to the United Nations resolution, is the people of Kashmir. Let it to be people of Kashmir decide. Let it to be demanded by the people of Kashmir to the international community. There is the only way. If you lost this way, then this, I'm sure, I'm not going to see the resolution of Kashmir in my life. We have to correct ourselves. Then we can use the international community mouthpieces. Then the international community will understand what is the core issue, even although they know about it. But they are taking advantage of the confused policies and confused statements and confused all our actions. And this advantage is an international community to bargain as the economic incentive from the market of India. And that's it. So let to be correct ourselves. First, if I'm not wrong, in order our own house. Unless we will not achieve. We are distracted from our demand. And our demand is, what is the demand of the peoples of Kashmir? Right of a self-determination, na? The first demand, let it to be stick on that. Going here and there will not serve these things. I am very much clear in my mind, and I am very much straightforwardly saying, it's not the Pakistan to advocate you. It's you have to advocate. This is what I am saying. Don't distract your vision. Don't distract your demand. The people of Kashmir, when they fight it against Hindu Dogra Raja, they fight it for their freedom, independence. They didn't fight to go to the Pakistan or to the India. They said it is our right to decide where we have to go. So this is what I am saying, and might be my few words might not be acceptable, but I'm saying practically, not a theoretically. It is not theoretically. It's a practical struggle for a people of Kashmir and for their freedom. First, the other question, you people will decide when you got the right of a self-determination. That is what I am focusing on, and that is what I am working at, and that is what I am asking from the international community. That is what I am enforcing on the international community. Okay, let us finish our promise with the people of Kashmir. And then it is the people of Kashmir to decide what they want to do with themselves. First obligation of every part of international community on mine is to emphasize, to enforce that promise what we made it 75 years back with the people of Kashmir. This is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, you people will not mind, but I am very much straight into my actions.
Thank you, Ambassador. for your remarks. As I see, that people might have different views about the future of Kashmir, but what we internationally advocate and what we have been advocating since long, and what we do with the international mechanism, of what we do while lobbying with the people or the ambassadors or the countries, the only thing we put forward is the promises made by the international community about the right celebration of people of Jammu and Kashmir to decide their political future. The same was the demand from the iconic leader, Sheikh Ali Shah Gilani. He was also of the same view that I prefer Pakistan, but I demand the right celebration for the people of Kashmir to decide their future. If the people decide otherwise, let them do. This was his demand also. It was not, nobody is in a way and that color somewhere. But when we see the way where we are and how we are working and what is the way of doing things, so things become rather a different way of putting them forward. People have their own views, but our view, the people of Kashmir are advocating for the UN recognized right to self-determination. Let the people choose themselves what they want. The UN should keep those promises and get involved in solving this matter. I will now give to Dr. Professor Shagufta Ashraf, who is coordinating all these webinars. Thank you to her for being so patient, listening to all these discussions. Professor Shagufta, you have the floor to say thank you to all the panelists and whatever you want to say. You are free.
Thank you very much, Vani Saab. And before saying thanks to all the excellencies and distinguished panelists, I have few points which I really want to discuss with you. Actually, I didn't want to discuss with you because the subject matter experts were sitting all the time and, they were discussing everything. But after listening this fruitful discussion, even few points are there which needs a little bit clarification, because a lot of Kashmiri representation is sitting here. Right from the Indian occupied Kashmir to the Pakistan administered Kashmir. So I think the true representation of Kashmir is present here. When you say that, who are actually the advocates of this Jammu and Kashmir dispute? Of course, the real beneficiaries are the Kashmiris. They are talking, they are raising their voice, I think, in the right manner. But if what we believe and we admit that if people around the globe, either they are Pakistan, either that is Afghanistan, either that around the globe, whosoever wants to support Kashmir and they want to come forward and they are ready to support. Dr. Rida Murad is here and she has been here and raising the voice for Kashmiris since long. So we cannot say that the people who are supporting the real cause, they are not allowed because they are not Kashmiri and they cannot take part into the discussions and raising the voices. No, we cannot. We welcome and we appreciate the supports provided by anyone, even from mainland India. If somebody wants to come forward to support us, we will welcome, because we need real support at the moment. We are fighting, no doubt, by ourselves, but we need support. So the case of Jammu and Kashmir dispute is very much simple. I think there is no need to make it complex in terms of the different kind of agreements or something like. There is no need, I think, to get involved into those agreements. Things are very clear. In terms of political solution, we need right to self-determination. People of Kashmir wants their right to self-determination to exercise. And secondly, before exercising that right to self-determination in terms of a plebiscite, we want that the human rights violations should be stopped there. So these are two demands by the people of Indian occupied Kashmir, particularly because plebiscite would be, of course, from all around, from that side, from this side. So of course, plebiscite is there. So the issue is very much clear that in which direction we have to move on. Secondly, Ambassador Shahid rightly said that we need both approaches, bottom up and top down. I think Kashmiris for the last 74 years have been using all the possible avistas, avenues, doors, table talking, whatsoever, the possible options are there, we are exercising. And as a result, we have now today achieved two particular legal testimonies, which are actually the reports on Kashmir after, the UN Security Council resolution, dozens and dozens of resolutions on Kashmir. After that, we have two legal testimonies there. And this is what we think that we are moving in the right direction, though we are moving slowly, but I think we are moving consistently in the right direction, because we are using the bottom-up approach in terms of today's this event in parallel to the 48th session of United Nations Human Rights Council, which is a registered webinar, seminar, or conference on Kashmir, and we are sitting here right from the South Africa to Lebanon to US to UK to even Azad Kashmir, and we are unfortunate that we don't have today with the representation from Indian occupied Kashmir at the moment, though we have the representation. Wani Saab, he's also present, but this is what the result of that discussion, that we are using the right approach. So we are using all the possible options we can, and collectively we believe that we are moving in right direction, because United Nations Human Rights, I would just like to share with you a good news after the sad demise of Gilani Saab and Ashraf Serai Saab, that it's not like that UN United Nations Human Rights Council is not taking consideration of these human rights violations, and the people of Kashmir are not raising their voice, and only Pakistan is doing a lot. But the good news is that the UN special rapporteurs expressed deep concerns over Ashraf Serai Saab's death and the rights body on Gilani Saab's funeral. So I would like to tell you here that 4 UN special rapporteurs so far have expressed serious concerns over the arrest, alleged torture, and death in custody of Hurriyat leader Ashraf Serai Saab. Ashraf Serai Saab was died in May this year, battling multiple illness at the Government Medical College in Jammu while serving detention under the Public Safety Act 1978. The special mandate holders have also demanded, after the death of Serai Saab, a separate impartial inquiry into the matter. And not only the UN, but I'm happy to share with you here that the international rights bodies, international rights organizations other than the international community has also, have started to raise their voice on this, these kinds of brutal and illegal occupation of Indian occupied Kashmir by India. So the special mandate holders have also demanded a separate impartial inquiry into the matter. And a fifth, which is the I would like to share the name of the organization here as well, because they are.
Professor Shugufta, your voice is gone. I think you should now thank you all. Professor Shugufta, do you hear us?
Seems like there's a bandwidth lag, actually. Seems like bandwidth might be slow.
21st century and
like that. Okay, sir.
Internet is also having a
Hello,
thing.
Vanessa, can you hear me?
I would like to thank you on behalf of Professor Shugufta. Already we have exhausted, I think, round about 3 hours for this webinar. So I thank you very much for all your patient listening and discussions and very energetic presentations and wonderful discussions and wonderful ideas for future. I thank you all, and inshallah we'll bother you in future webinars also.
Vani Saab,
look forward to see.
I am back.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Yes,
We can
Vani
hear
Saab.
you. Now you can say
Yes,
goodbye.
Shagufta, I'm hearing.
Did you?
Pardon. I was disconnected. Bad Wi-Fi. It was screwed.
But just
Okay.
make quick now.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
quickly,
As we already-
very quickly. Thank you very much, all the excellencies, my respected mentors. You are always there for me to suggest, to advise, to move, to to advise how to move in the right direction. You're all the time with me. I'm really grateful, and you are truly true voice of basically we the oppressed and suppressed people of Indian occupied Kashmir. We really request you to be with us in this freedom, because without you we cannot do a lot. So thank you very much once again, and I hope that you will join me again in our future webinars and will keep on supporting me like you have been always doing. Thank you very much.
Hussain Saab, I'm suggesting one thing. In 2022, why not we will be having an in-person conference facilitated by the International Human Rights Commission at the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York.
It's a great idea, sir. You are most welcome. We will be very much honored to participate in that conference.
And let me announce on the 10th day, and on the 10th day of December, while celebrating the International World Human Rights Day in 2020, we will name the International Conference on Kashmir, and my secretariat will extend the invitation to the all concerned quarters around the world to the people of Kashmir to be gathered into the United Nations General Assembly Hall and to show our solidarity and our demand of the right of self-determination for people of Kashmir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful gesture, and we will like to be there in New York. And I can see Barrister Nadia's face. She's very much happy that we will be in New York next year. That's 2020. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, everyone. Had a great discussion. Had a
Goodbye
great
to all of you.
discussion in terms of learning,
Allah
full of
bless you
learning.
all.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Vanessa.
much.
Thank you, everybody.